This episode is proudly supported by Percy Australian Cultured Butter.
The Percy are all new Australian butter sheets. Everything we've learned over the last 12 years, we've put into making this new butter sheet. Combined with a brand spanking new shiny machine from Switzerland, we're able now to produce this beautiful butter sheet that's so easy to laminate with. So it's pliable, it's very fresh. If you're an Australian baker buying our butter sheets, they're made weekly. The formulation, it's a beautiful unsalted butter that will work for savoury and sweet. I think it's a perfect balance there. The bakers and pastry chefs that are using it are just raving about it.
For more information, go to pepisayer.com.au.
I love the idea that, if people, on a Sunday, you have 500 people walk through your door and, and you have the opportunity to impact their day. And I just, that thrill is, I don't think will ever go away. And if it ever does, then I'll definitely get out of hospitality.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The sprawl of Western Sydney is really quite extraordinary. The sheer size means small cities become important hubs within Sydney. Penrith at the foot of the mountains has been quietly creating its own voice in food with operators in tune with the local market, but looking to bring elevated experiences as well. Philip Hallani is the co-owner of The Orchard and Fish and owner of Percy Plunkett, Gellerfrender in Penrith. Philip, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It sounds like you are a busy man. You've got a lot of businesses.
Yeah, life's been about 6 years ago. We opened our first business 7 years ago, and ever since then, it's been pretty chaotic.
You've got very different offerings, doing different things, but really raising sort of the bar in a huge part of Sydney. What's things like there at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I felt when we were in Penrith, there was never anything back in the day. Like I'm talking about, 10 years ago, there was nothing. The offering wasn't nowhere near as good as a city or areas like that. So for me, I always wanted to bring those venues to Penrith, the quality that we enjoyed out in the city. So Penrith's Western Suburb is absolutely thriving at the moment. It's a great place to be at the moment.
Tell us a little bit about your businesses. You've got a couple of different offerings. Tell us about some of them.
Yeah, sure. So Percy Plunkett was my first business that me and my wife started. We had a business partner at the time. That was my dream venue, cafe, breakfast, lunch, 7 days a week. Then we opened an Italian restaurant next door. We called it the girlfriend of Percy Plunkett, which is in Italian Gellerfrender, like the fun take on that. We got a fish and chip shop called Fish. That's something we're looking to grow. We've got 2 sites at the moment. It's that humble food, elevated experience. That's our motto for the fish shop. And our most recent venue, which we opened about 18 months ago, which has also been one of the most challenging, has been the Orchard in Penrith, which is set on 5 acres, and there's multiple different offerings on site.
It's a huge venue, the Orchard. I want to touch on that first because it just offers so many things. What's it been like sort of running smaller venues and then taking on something so huge like that?
Yeah, definitely. If we're being 100% honest, definitely out of my depth, out of our depth. I think when we opened and we had a lot of success early on with other venues, but when you're opening something at the scale of the Orchard, I think we tried to do everything at once, all the venues at once. And even though it was crazy busy, we definitely missed the guest experience, which is something that we pride ourselves on in our venues. And there was a couple of other factors. We started building before COVID that caused a lot of delays. And then during COVID, cost of construction went through the roof. And then from there, it was just, we overcapitalized a lot more money than we thought we were going to spend. And we were chasing our tail from day one, which caused a lot of problems, a lot of pressure. And being frank, we didn't handle it very well either.
But it's really blossoming now. How are things in sort of Penrith and the greater area in regards to trade and everything at the moment?
I think we're very blessed with our venues, especially Percy Plunkett and Galafrenda. They've been quite established for a while now, so they're consistent. The trade's there. You were kind of Percy Plunkett in particular. I feel like it's a bit of an institute in Penrith. It's very well loved, and that was my first venue, and it'll always be my baby. But I think overall, I think like everywhere in Australia, it is very tough. I think I'd say since COVID. It's been tough, and it's just been a bit of a yo-yo the last 12 to 24 months. But, we're really just trying to focus on the things that, guest experience, the things that people love. That's our main focus at the moment.
I want to explore, in particular, Percy Plunkett and the beginnings of that sort of first business of yours. But take us back to when you were young. Whereabouts did you grow up, and what sort of role did food play for you?
Yeah, so I was born in Lebanon, but came to Australia at a very young age, and maybe only a couple of years old. And my parents have been in milk. I lived my whole life out west in Penrith. So after we moved back from Lebanon, we moved to Penrith, and my parents have had milk bars and takeaway shops in western suburbs the last 40 years. So I grew up in takeaway shops. I grew up in milk bars. For me, all I knew was hospitality. So for me, I grew up around the milk bars, obviously being Lebanese, the hospitality. We have this saying within our family, we didn't get into hospitality, we were born into it, because it's really what drives our family, like the gatherings on a Friday night, all the community, everyone's over at my parents' house. And that's where I really learned the meaning of hospitality, and, trying all different types of Lebanese food that my mum would make. At the time, I probably didn't like or appreciate as much as I do now. But it was an amazing time growing up. And, when I was younger, like if you said to me, did you want to open a shop, when I was 12, 13, I'd say no way in the world, but it's in my blood, and I'm absolutely obsessed about it. I love hospitality.
I'm probably showing my age a little bit, but milk bars, when I was a kid, that was like such a hub of the community. It's where everyone would get, a takeaway meal. What was the food like in the milk bars compared to at home?
Milk bars were very classic kind of fish and chip burgers. Believe it or not, my parents, the last milk shop my parents opened was in 98. And 27 years later, they still own it. The burgers are wrapped in paper bags, the chips in newsprint. It's still pretty old school. It's like not much has changed with that business in 27 years. So, you'd go from making fish and chips, fish and chips and burgers for your regular customers, and then you'd go home and you'd have the most traditional Lebanese food at home. And like I said, I really didn't understand or appreciate it back then, but now as I've gotten older and understood the history and the foods and the types of food, the Arab, Middle Eastern food, it's definitely my favorite cuisine.
Yeah, well, there's many that would agree, including myself. Is there any sort of dishes or feasts that you do remember from when you were young that you can share with us?
I think it's just a lot of barbecues. I think that was the biggest thing is like, cooking, eating off the barbecue, fresh off the barbecue. There's a couple of dishes. It'd be hard for me to explain what they are in English, but it's like, there was one called kusa and mulkhiyeh, rice, vine leaves. It was just, the dishes were just so unique. And obviously I'd go to school and no one would know what the hell I was eating or what I was taking to school, but just very unique to the things we used to in Australia, like the typical sandwiches and things like that. So, like the za'atar, at school I'd take the za'atar sandwiches and everyone was looking at what the hell are you eating? What's that smell? So, but I loved it. Like I loved it. I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now, but, it was very different. Like it was a very different, but I think that my favorite memory since I was a kid is the barbecues. Like the kafta and the shish kebabs and all those kinds of things that, we still eat today. They're my favorite memories because it was like everyone would kind of have a plate and grab skewers off the charcoal barbecue and eat. It was just like, even now thinking about it, it was just, we still do it. Last Friday we were doing it, so that's definitely my favorite memory for sure.
Is there any advice or actions or anything that you've taken from your parents and the world of hospitality you grew up in that you've used, in your businesses nowadays?
Everything good I've learned has been from my parents, and especially my dad with hospitality and how you treat people, how you make people feel, and not necessarily in the business, the milk bar that we own, but it was more the way my parents would make people feel. Being Lebanese, being in Penrith, there wasn't a big Lebanese community. So a lot of people that came out to Penrith that were Lebanese, my dad would find out who they are. He'd invite them to their house. He'd make them feel comfortable, make them feel welcome. And, I know people that, don't have anyone in Australia, but they call my parents, dad and mum, because they looked after them really well when they were growing up, when they were in Australia, when they had no one else. So now these people have married and had kids, but they still treat my parents like their own parents because of the way my parents made them feel. And that's at the core of hospitality. That's what it's about, how you make people feel, right? And one of our, Percy Plunkett, our cafe, it's an old heritage house, and we named it after Percy Plunkett, who lived in the house in the 1950s. And our slogan's welcome home because, we mix the heritage of that property plus the hospitality that we felt at our house. So the biggest thing I can say I learned from my parents is the way they made people feel, not just in the business, but in their homes when they welcome them through the doors.
A bit earlier on, you mentioned that when you were about 12 or 13, you thought there was no chance that you'd have a career in hospitality. But there was a time, obviously, where you changed your mind. Tell us about that period of time where you thought, hang on a minute, hospitality is for me.
Yeah, I'd probably say so. Football was my passion growing up. I wasn't great at it, but I loved it, and I worked really hard to try to get to the next level, which unfortunately I never made. But I learned a lot of life skills from football. Work ethic, commitment, resilience, a lot of things that helped me to get to where we're at now in hospitality. But I think I'd say maybe anywhere from 18 to 22 is when it was like, oh, wow. Like I got addicted to the feeling of making people feel really happy. And I was, in the milk bar, it was transactional. It was very quick. So someone would come in, buy milk, bread, packet of cigarettes. And I had, if they weren't buying food, they were buying, like their snacks or buying, a couple of dollars worth of sliced meat or whatever it was. And I had a couple of minutes to really make an impact on them. And, sometimes I'd come in and I'd have a joke, I'd say a joke. And then the next time to come in would start asking questions and then you become friends with these people. And so I really I got addicted to the feeling of making people feel good. And I love the idea of it now, throughout my venues is we can still do that throughout all our venues, making people feel good and feel special,
Phil, you did some work at the grounds in Alexandria. Tell us about that period of time.
Yeah, so I reached out while I was working at my parents' milk bar. I knew I wanted to open a cafe, and so I reached out to multiple operators, on social media. Instagram was early on back then, and I reached out to Ramsey at the grounds, and I just said, hey, look, I'd love to learn a little bit about what you do, and I want to learn from the best. And I got the opportunity to go work there. At the start, I kind of just said, look, just throw me in anywhere. I don't want to be a burden. I'll work for free, and I did that for a couple of months, and it was the most amazing experience just seeing how, because the grounds obviously till this day is still one of the best venues in Australia, if not the world. And for me to be able to see the behind the scenes, the guest experience, the sheer size of the venue, it just opened my eyes to the possibilities of what I could do. And it also kind of gave me the confidence because I seen that from the guest experience, it looked the most perfect venue, but just like any business, there was, you see things in the back of house, there's always stresses, people not showing up to work. And it kind of gave me the confidence to say, hey, not everyone's got it figured out. Not everyone's perfect. You can, you can always figure out a way to make it an amazing experience for the guests. So, so pretty much I worked there for about 4 months, probably I think max 6 months I was there for. And then I met some amazing people, one in particular called Tyson. He was a general manager of the grounds at the time. And he became my biggest mentor, helped me through every venue I've opened. He's been part of that open for me. And he's just kind of guided me and helped me and really set the foundations to make it a successful venue. So about a year later, Percy Plunkett, the site came available. It was a rundown. So obviously it was a heritage house, but for the last 50 years, it was trading as a commercial property, and it was a rundown Thai restaurant, 15 years. We got in there. We hired Matt Woods, Killing Matt Woods Design, one of the most amazing architects, and we built Percy Plunkett, and till this day it's a bit iconic in Penrith, and I'm very proud of it because we've kept the standard. It's a great business. We've kept the standard. Our culture's amazing. You know, we've got a high retention rate with our staff. It's just a very special business. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was reaching out to people. I'm really good at identifying what I'm not good at and just reaching out to people to help me with the things I need help with. And that was one of probably the best things I ever did. And 7 years later, here we are.
Tell us about the rebuild of the heritage space. Were there challenges to sort of get what you wanted, and take us through that process?
Massive challenges, and being a first-time operator, I was lucky my business partner had a bit of experience with business and stuff like that before. So my business partner was more business-focused. I was more hospitality. So he would come in and he would be discussing the lease with the landlord and whatnot. And the hardest thing with heritage was it's very hard because we're very lucky that with the current building we had, Percy Plunkett, there was some fire damage in 91, which that meant they were a bit more relaxed with some of the changes we wanted to make internally. Externally, we didn't touch anything like the brickwork. We redid the flooring and whatever had to be redone for, safety and operational use. But we were quite lucky. We were able to knock down a couple of walls that had some fire damage from previous. Because before it was literally like it was like a traditional house. It was like 4 rooms, 5 rooms. And it was pretty crazy to see what we were able to do, what we got approved for. But the whole idea with us was we were trying to promote to the council and the heritage department that we want to honour the past, but we also want to be like progress to the future as well. And this building was so beautiful from the outside, but if we didn't do what we did, it was just going to end up being a rundown building, and I think the lady, we hired someone from modern heritage design, and she was amazing. She worked with council and she really understood what we wanted to do, but she also wanted to preserve the heritage. And I mean, we named it after Percy Plunkett. I've had the great granddaughter of Percy Plunkett visit us for breakfast, and it's so special because Penrith's all about community and people, and the fact that we can name, I'm a local resident. I own a building that was owned by a local resident. I've had the family. It's just the most amazing story. There's 3 families that lived in that building: the Holliers, the Welsh family, the Plunkett's. Like the amount of stories we've heard from that building, from that property, it's a very, very, very unique. And I think it's one in these kind of buildings I think that's why it's done so well, because it's a big part of what we do is storytelling, and the story of Percy Plunkett has been pretty amazing.
It's a real institution there now in Penrith. And at the top of the show, we sort of discussed how Penrith has evolved so much with food. But back then, when you did open, were you nervous about the offering and bringing such a sort of an elevated cafe experience to the area?
No, we didn't. I wasn't. It was crazy. It's amazing when you don't know what you don't know, and you just kind of go for it and you don't mind. But everything I've ever done has been through personal experience. So when I opened Percy's, it was like, okay, we're traveling outside of Penrith. We're a young family. I had a young son at the time. He was only, I think he was 2 or 3, and we didn't want to leave Penrith anymore to go nice places. And don't get me wrong, there was a couple of great venues in Penrith, but they were smaller, they were a bit more boutique. And but like the basic coffee clubs and the Gloria Jeans, and they were thriving in Penrith. And I thought to myself, if these ones are doing well, then I know we have the opportunity to do what we wanted to do. So my concept was we want to be in between a restaurant and a coffee club, for example. So we want to elevate the experience, but we don't want to make it too fancy. So we called Percy Plunkett a breakfast restaurant, and like a brunch style restaurant. And I think we kept it simple. We just kind of elevated that experience a little bit, kind of like we did with Fish as well, where we didn't reinvent the wheel. We just really good quality food, clean oil, good batter, and it keep it simple, And I think with Percy's, because the venue was so beautiful, it was kid friendly, family friendly. You can go on a date there, you can bring your family there, you can have a meeting there, you can have a function there. So it kind of catered to the whole of Penrith. And we made sure that the food wasn't, things they didn't know what it was. Even till this day, I still keep it very simple in the basic description of the menu, because I want to simplify things, but I want the wow factor to be in the food when they're trying it,
How did the opportunity for Gelafrenda come about?
So so Percy Plunkett and Gelafrenda is part of the shopping centre, but it's because that whole precinct is heritage, they were never able to knock it down and build like a bigger complex. So after Percy Plunkett, they seen the success of that, and they came up to us and they said, "Hey, look, we want to develop this precinct. We've got an opportunity next door." At this point, it was something that I really wanted to grow our hospitality company, our hospitality group, and I was like, "This is a good opportunity." So we wanted to do Percy's by day, Gelafrenda by night, different offerings, and I kind of felt if I did that, I can control the standard at the time. I was kind of like, I was very hands-on the first couple of years. So if I had to be at Percy's during the day and Gelafrenda at night, I did whatever it took, and it was actually, it's an amazing precinct. We use now, because Percy Plunkett's quite busy, we use Gelafrenda, for casual takeaway seating for the restaurant during the day. And Gelafrenda is purely just a nighttime venue 5 nights a week as well. So.
Was it hard landing on sort of what you wanted to do with Gelafrenda and getting that offering right?
With Gelafrenda offering, we did look at a few different options, but again, I just wanted a really good community neighborhood Italian. There's some great Italian places here, but I just wanted the place where you can come get dressed up and have a beautiful meal in store, or you can grab a takeaway pizza and pasta and have it at home in your pajamas. And I just felt, I looked at it and I thought, what's something that I can eat every week? What's something that is probably one of the most deliverable products, on Uber and online, and what is something that's constant? I find I kind of say, okay, if that's the case, then I'm going to go something like Italian or fish and chips, which we ended up doing anyway. But once we knew we wanted to go down the Italian route, it was just a matter of finding the right offering. And yeah, it's been an amazing success. So.
All of your venues are known for the hospitality and generous nature of them. How do you train your staff and get the best out of them? What's your approach within the company?
My favorite thing in the world in hospitality is creating amazing culture and making my team happy. And I literally just had a reminder today from the old Zappos company in America. That ended up being acquired by Amazon, and they talk about your culture is number one, and that's a priority, and it'll work out everything else. So with me, because I grew up in a family business, that transferred over to me for, when I opened Percy Plunkett. I literally treated everyone like family, and if they were moving houses, I was there to help them move houses. If instead of doing just one Christmas party, one dinner party a week a year as a Christmas party, we did every 3 months we had a team dinner, and then every second month we did team training. And I really focused on making my people feel special and make them feel part of something, and we've had, probably one of my things I'm most proud of is our retention's so high. And in hospitality, it's for a lot of people, it's a kind of gap that feels they're in between university and their career. They might do that job or as they're getting in high school. But we've had staff that have been with us for 5 years, 6 years, and it's not really heard of much in hospitality. And I put a lot of emphasis on the way we make our people feel, because if I want the best guest experience, I have to make sure I have the best culture,
You've been a big part of the food evolution of that region. What do you love about Penrith and the food offering that you're seeing now and the opportunities?
It's really cool to watch a lot of operators that went out to the city, that tried to be chefs, wanted to be chefs out in the city, and they come back and open their own venues. I feel like the offering now in Penrith is massive. I think the only reason I leave Penrith is I want to go to the beach. We got the restaurants, we got the Westfields, we got the dessert offerings, and I just find, and it's just the space is there, and I feel like Penrith's a country town on steroids. And what's amazing is we have all the great offerings, any cuisine you want. We have that, and I feel like we got some amazing operators, some amazing venues in Penrith, some people doing some really cool stuff, a lot of young up and comers. I could name you 10 cafes right now or restaurants that are just doing so well. The High Street Depot, Henry Mark, Birdhouse, Theo's Rooftop. You've got a beautiful rooftop restaurant and bar, which is part of the hotel, part of the Stina Group. There's just amazing, there's beautiful venues like the Laughing Boy on the river. I just find the offerings amazing. We have the River Walk, which is the equivalent to the Bay Walk, Bay Run in Sydney, and it's just Penrith is just amazing. My wife, when we got married, moved from Melbourne to Penrith, and within a year she's like, I love this place, I never want to leave, and Penrith's always had a bit of a bad rep, but it's got everything you need.
You grew up in the family milk bars, as you mentioned. But what does your family think about what you've created?
It's funny. So my parents are very, very proud. My family's very proud. But I had I'm a bit nostalgic when it comes to reminders and all those Facebook, Instagram reminders. And I remember I had a photo of my dad when we were building Percy Plunkett. He came and visited, and I remember my dad coming from, like, our parents are the real entrepreneurs. They're the ones that came from overseas with nothing, didn't know the language, built a future for all their kids, for all my siblings. And I remember my dad was so scared when he found out what the cost of Percy Plunkett was going to cost to build. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that you needed X amount of people to come in to pay the rent, to make profit. And I remember, he was so scared for me, but he was also so excited because he knew it was my passion. And then when we opened, it was so busy from the start. Just seeing how proud he was, that was probably one of the most special, other than seeing my boys and how happy they are there when they're at the restaurant, my kids, seeing my dad and my mum proud is probably up there with probably the best feeling in the world.
Well, Phil, you've got a number of businesses now that are doing really well. What sort of plans do you have for the next year or two?
Yeah, I think the plan for the next few years is just slow down, get better before we get bigger, really focus on systems, procedures, and really just put a lot of effort into people. I think we had such a big couple of years that there's no plan to open any more venues, but I really want to focus on what we have, and then maybe in a couple of years we'll see. And with everything happening in the economy, I kind of wanted to slow down and see what happens over the next few years.
Wow, it's incredible what you've created already. And but what do you love about what you do?
I guess the same feeling when I was 18, 19, 20, where I love the idea of making people happy. I love the idea that, if people, on a Sunday, you have 500 people walk through your door, and, and you have the opportunity to impact their day and start their day off on the right note. And it's like I said, I love making, I'm happy seeing other people happy. And, I just, that thrill is, I don't think will ever go away. And if it ever does, then I'll definitely get out of hospitality.
Well, Phil, it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today, to hear just a part of your story, and look forward to hearing more of it. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Appreciate it. And thanks so much for wanting to hear my story. I appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.